everybody, and welcome to the High Performance Garden Show. This is week 7, and we got a lot of amazing things happening in the garden this week. But I want to tell you what happened to me yesterday. Yesterday I went to visit a friend last night that had just had surgery. He was so weak and depressed and hurting. It was actually pretty scary to see a person this way, and I wouldn't wish this state on my very worst enemy. So I asked myself, how does this happen to people? So many people these days are really sick with what I call modern society disease, which is the chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. Then I remember a passage in Dr. Terry Wahls' book, and I would like to read that to you right now. And it's about what creates health. So I absolutely love this book and her philosophies. So you are made of cells. The human body consists of trillions of cells, and cells come in different sizes and shapes, and they also do different things, but they are essentially the building blocks that make up our bodies. Cells, however, don't just work under any conditions. They need certain nutrients in order to do the work to keep you alive and healthy. Without those nutrients, the cells begin to malfunction and even die. So where does the nutrients come from? They come from the food that you eat and nowhere else. If you aren't providing the right nutrients and environment for your cells, then they won't work as well as they could, and a malfunction at the cellular level could eventually impact any aspect of your health. Your genetics may determine what goes wrong, but when the cells aren't getting what they need, the body doesn't work right, and something, usually many somethings, will go wrong somewhere. People often wonder whether health is mostly a matter of genetics. Do your cells work well or poorly depending on your DNA? If it were all up to your genes, then what you eat and how you live wouldn't matter very much. However, we know this is not the case. So Terry lives in Iowa, and she says, living in Iowa, we hear a lot about corn and see a lot of corn. And so I use this as an example reflecting my Midwestern roots, as an example of how important fuel is for your mitochondria and by extension your cells, your organs, and your entire body, including your brain. So a packet of seed can contain all the same DNA, but if you plant a handful of corn seed in rich black Iowa soil and you toss another handful onto a toxic trash heap topped with a thin layer of dirt, the seeds will grow into much different plants. The seeds planted in the rich Iowa soil will be tall, sturdy, and lush with healthy ears of corn. The seeds planted in the trash heap, if they sprout at all, will be spindly, pale, and probably unable to produce, much, if any, corn, because there is not enough nutrients to nourish the plant. Same DNA, completely different results. The bottom line is that your DNA will play a remarkably small role in whether or not you develop a particular disease. Scientists believe the environment determines 70 to 95% of the risk of developing. Scientists believe that the environment determines 70 to 95% of the risk of developing health problems. Environment means what you are eating, what you are drinking, what you are breathing in, what you bathe in, how you move, and how you think and interact with people. What really matters is your genes' interaction with the accumulation of your choices. This is what will determine whether you have good health or develop a chronic disease. So with this garden, we can start to control our nutrients that we are getting by growing our own food. So let's work at growing the very best food we can possibly create, and let's eat 1/3 leafy greens, 1/3 sulfur vegetables, and 1/3 color vegetables to help our cells get what they need every day. Quality in our food apparently is very important to our health. I think this is good information to teach our children so they don't end up with chronic diseases. And for us, it is a start to allowing our bodies to start healing. So to grow vegetables with nutrients in mind, we need to have our microbes working in our soil to feed our plants. We also need to have the proper nutrients in the soil so that the microbes have the nutrients available for the plants. In order to do this, we need to fertilize the garden with the macro and micronutrients that are needed. So last week we talked about feeding the plants, and we have heavy feeders, light feeders, and givers. And our heavy feeders are plants that require a lot of food to create a crop. Our heavy feeders in this garden are tomatoes, squash, and cucumbers. The light feeders are plants that produce a crop that don't require as much food. In this garden they are onions, carrots, lettuce, spinach, our shikaku, our beets, our bok choy, our cabbage, our turnips, our broccoli, our Swiss chard, and our kale. So givers are plants that take nitrogen from the air and put that into the soil for our plants to consume. And these are things like green beans and peas. So in order for the plants to have the highest nutrients, we need to provide the nutrients organically to the microbes that will convert the nutrients for the plants so that it is plant available. The plants then make the nutrients available to us. For more details on which plants are heavy feeders, light feeders, and givers, there's a whole section in the Abundance Garden course and details on how to feed each plant to get the highest nutrients available. So for today, we're going to create a feeding plan so that the plants will always have the nutrients that they need. So the heavy feeders will get a cup of compost and a tablespoon of Happy Frog fruit and flower fertilizer every 4 weeks. And the light feeders we will feed every 8 weeks, unless they're looking hungry. And I will show you signs of hunger if we see them throughout the season. By feeding the plants on a schedule that they need, we can take care of the fifth environmental factor that affects the quality and quantity of our produce. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the garden. We're going to mulch, we're going to weed, we're going to harvest, and we're going to start feeding the plants on week 8. Because the plants have enough nutrients right now because they're not producing a whole bunch of like tomatoes and squash right now. So we don't have to start worrying about feeding them until week 8. So we will get to that shortly. Okay, let's go ahead and start into the garden. Okay, here we are in the corner of the garden, and we are going to be looking for those environmental factors that are going to affect our quality and our quantity. And we're also going to get our harvest done. And I mowed the lawn, so we have some mulch to put on. So the first thing I want to do is take a look at the tomatoes. And what I'm looking for nutrients is their color. What is the color of the leaves? We got some good dark green. If I'm starting to get nutrient deficient, I'm going to see some color changes down at the bottoms of the leaves. These are looking good and strong. We will start feeding them next week, but this week we're going to just take a look at them. We're also going to be trellising them up here pretty soon. Right now they're standing up quite well on their own, but we'll put our trellises up as soon as we stop covering for frost. We're still covering for frost, and we'll get these going. The first thing I want to do in here is to go ahead and get our spinach harvested. So we're going to go through and just take off the leaves that are big just by popping them off, and then we're going to come through and mulch the garden and start holding in the moisture a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to grab the last of the spinach here. We got a nice haul of spinach. That's awesome. I bet there's a good ½ pound here, so that'll make a good meal. I'm going to set that down, and I did see 2 weeds. Ooh, weeding's such a hard job. And I'm going to come over here. There's another weed. Okay, we've got 3 today. And we're going to start mulching. So what I did is I went out and mowed the lawn, and I like to put it on fresh. You don't want it to sit around in the bucket because it gets really stinky. Make sure your lawn is organic. I repeat myself, make sure your lawn is organic. If you don't grow an organic lawn, don't put it on your garden. It's not very hard to grow an organic lawn. You can use the same compost tea for your lawn. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're putting on our mulch, trying to get it about 1 inch thick. Won't get it quite that thick today because of the spinach. I'm coming underneath these tomato plants. So we're doing a couple things with the mulch. One, we're cutting back on our weeds. Two, we are feeding the microbes. They can come and eat this stuff. And three, we're cutting back on our watering. So we like mulch. And I'm just spreading it down in between these leaves. Oh, there's another weed. Okay, we're all the way up to 4. Woo! So every week I'll mow a little bit more lawn. We'll put a little bit more on, get it a little thicker and a little thicker. It's just a process that we're going to work on all season. Okay, and I can put it right down in through here. When you put it on fresh off the lawn, what it does is it'll go on kind of thick, and then it mats down and makes this really tight mat that's hard for the weeds to penetrate through. So essentially we're just cutting out the weeding of our garden, which hasn't been too bad yet. I don't think it'll get bad either, especially with this. Okay. All right, now we're going to come around to the front, a little bit under this tomato plant. Right, lots of blossoms coming on the tomatoes. That's really exciting. As it gets hotter and hotter, the mulch is going to be really important to keep moisture in this garden. Because we're working with a sandy loam, it's going to tend to want to drain quicker than most garden soils, which is what the plants want, but it just makes it so that we have to water a little more. But the mulch kind of counteracts that. Okay, we're going to call that good in this section, and next week we can add a little bit more. Okay, coming on down. This is our cabbage and our shigaiku, and I'm very impressed with this cabbage. These suckers are huge. They've taken off bigger than what I expected this week. So we're going to go ahead and harvest some shigaiku, but it's really buried down underneath these plants. So it'll probably be our last harvest that we get off of here. These cabbages are very, very happy. And I love cabbage, so I have no problem with that. So I'm just going to push back the cabbage, just come through here with the scissors, and just trim off our shigaiku plants. And the nice thing about the shigaiku, these have gotten a little tall because they're competing for the light, is that all the stems are very tender. So even if they're this tall, you can throw those right into your stir fries. Okay, working my way. Okay, I got the majority of the shigaiku. Remember last week we cut this side and this week we cut this side. So there was a good amount in there. So that's going to be totally delicious. And the shigaiku will have different nutrients in it than the spinach. So by varying our diet and eating different things, we're giving our cells different nutrients that they need. So it's important to eat a wide variety. It's really hard to find that at the store. If you look at the greens at the store, there's what, maybe 3 kinds? But in your garden, you can grow hundreds of kinds. So try something odd. It's really delicious and gives you that extra nutrition. So okay, that is done. And the cabbage is good. I'm not going to mulch this yet until we pull the shigaiku plants out. And then we'll get under here and get these cabbages mulched. But they're looking great. For our environmental factors here, I'm looking for the eggs for the little butterflies. And I want to look on the back sides of the leaves. I want to look for aphids. I'm seeing a few chew marks, but I think that was probably a stray grasshopper. I'm not seeing any worms. When we do, we'll start taking care of them. But you want to take a little time every day to go in your garden, see what's normal, and then see what's not normal anymore. So you want to see how things are changing. I'm looking at color and shapes and all the things that make up these plants. Are there holes in the leaves? You know, what's going on in here? Because the plants aren't going to say, hey, I need some help. You have to read the plant and figure that out yourself. So take a good look every time you're in here. Okay, cabbage section is done. We're going to move on down. And down here we have our cucumbers and one little weed. Woo, got it. Oh, two. Oh my goodness. And these guys are looking great. They are starting to grow. I'm just going to leave them alone for now, and then when we put our trellises up, we will get that, get them tied up and thinned. One little piece of grass here and one little weed there. Okay, we are weeded. The front section here is our carrots. They're looking really good. There's just two little thin spots. I think I'm just going to let those ride because I think we've got plenty of carrots in here. And there's not a whole lot that we need to do for those. Okay, moving on down. This is our zucchini and our spinach, and everything at this end is going bonkers. It's looking great. The zucchini, I see some flower buds coming. There again, I want to be looking on the back sides of the leaves. Are there any bugs? What's the color of the plant? How's it looking? Everything here is looking great. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest my spinach. And eventually, as you can see, the zucchini plant is going to grow over the top of my spinach, but I'm going to get 3 or 4 weeks worth of great spinach before that happens. So I'm going to get my spinach picked, and we'll take a look at the other zucchini plant. Okay, here's our spinach harvest. Now this is what was between the tomatoes and the zucchini. So we got, oh man, a lot of spinach, probably close to 2 pounds. Now if you get excess, put it in the freezer or share it with a friend. You've got plenty of places to take it, so go ahead and share it around. What I'm doing now is just starting to add a little bit of mulch to this garden. I'm going to put it in rather thinly into the spinach, mostly because I don't like the grass clippings in my salad. And then down here into the zucchini, we'll start to go a little thicker. I would guess we can harvest spinach for another week or two, and then the zucchini is going to take over all the space. And at that point, we will mulch everything really heavy. But we can get it started now. This front zucchini plant, it's looking really good. Colors are good. I'm not seeing any bugs. And I do see some flower buds coming, so I bet you in 2 weeks we're eating zucchini, which will be fun because we haven't had any for a while now. Okay, a little more mulch in here. And you just put your little handfuls in, and when you get the chance, we get the spinach out, we'll put it on even thicker. Okay, so this back garden is done, and next we're going to go ahead and take a look at the broccoli. Okay, here we are in the broccoli, and the first thing that I noticed is that we're starting to get little broccoli heads right down in the center. That one has one, this one has one, that one. So man, we're going to be eating broccoli next week. That is totally awesome. So the other thing I want to do for my broccoli is I want to look at the undersides of the leaves, and I'm looking for little white eggs, I'm looking for little green worms, and aphids is the other thing that likes broccoli. And so far we are clean, clean, clean. But you want to be observant. There's that one little aphid right there. Okay. All right, broccoli's doing great. Okay, that's good for the broccoli. We're just going to let those heads come on up, and we'll have something yummy to eat next week. Okay, I want to take a look at my turnips, and I see one here that's big enough to pluck. And once they get radish size or a little bigger, I mean, you can eat them up to baseball size, and they're still totally delicious. Now, the great thing about these is you can eat the base, you can eat it raw like a radish, you can slice it and saute it and eat it cooked, and you can also eat the greens. So the greens are going to be a part of our meal as well. So if you're going to cook the two together, what you would do is you cut the balls off, cut them into little coins, saute them in some oil, and then right at the very end, after the slices have gotten tender, you throw the greens in for the last 30 seconds and you got a fantastic meal. So that's how you cook these. You do them separate but together. How's that for a statement? Separate but together. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up several of these so we can make a little dish. And I'm going to leave the rest so they can grow a little bit bigger. So you can eat them any size from here up to baseball size. Ooh, there's a nice one. Okay, this garden is a lot of fun, isn't it? We do a lot of harvesting and very little weeding, which I really like. That's the way I want my garden to be. Okay, a few more here. Ooh, I'm excited about the broccoli. Fresh broccoli, yum. Okay, there's enough to make a mess. So we'll cut the bottoms off, saute them, and then we will chop the tops and put them in the last 30 seconds. And we got another wonderful meal and another flavor to add to our table. Okay, there's our turnips. And the broccoli is good. The next thing we're going to look at is our kale. And the kale is doing great. We're going to go ahead and harvest it. And I just snap off these leaves and come right on down through here. As I'm harvesting the kale, I'm looking for aphids. I'm also looking for the little cabbage loopers, which will lay the eggs just like the broccoli, because they're related to each other. I'm not seeing anything yet, but when I do, then we can take care of the problem. If you guys got problems in your garden, jump into the Abundance Garden course. We have people that you can send pictures to. You can email us, and we'll help you with any of your garden problems. So feel free to do that. Okay, we're going to get us some nice kale here today. Okay, here's the end of the kale. There's about half a pound there. That's great. And we pulled out, I think, 3 weeds. So the kale is good. This is another opportunity to mulch. Let me find my mulch bucket. Hang on. Okay, here it is. Now, once we've harvested the kale, we can come down through here with the mulch and put it really thick down underneath these plants. And that should stop any of the rest of the weeds for the season. And also, as it gets hotter, which will happen eventually, the mulch will help keep the roots of the kale cooler, because kale likes it a little bit on the cool side. So after you do your harvest is a great time to mulch, because most of the big leaves are out of the way. Okay, put the last of the mulch in there, and this will settle down in nicely, and then next week we can top it off a little bit more if we want. What we're looking for is a nice thick mat of grass. As it shrinks down in, it just tightens up around the plants. And boy, does that stop the weeds. But the other part to stopping the weeds is we started with our secret soil mix, which doesn't have any native soil. So we didn't start the garden with weed seeds. We've never let the weeds go to seed in this garden. This garden's in its 3rd year. So we're not getting the exposure to the weeds that most people have. So the weeds are really not a big issue, which is great. Okay, we're going to move on down to the bok choy. And it is going nuts like I expected it to. It is absolutely totally beautiful. And we're just going to go around the edges of the plants. And we're going to harvest more leaves. And like I say, share this with some friends. Start talking about your garden and show them what it's doing. You know, snap a few pictures with your phone and take a salad to somebody. That would be a really fun treat. Okay, well, look at all this wonderful food. There again, we are looking for the little white butterflies. We're looking for eggs. We're looking for little green worms. We're also looking for leaf miner, which is a bug that actually lays its eggs and they grow in between the layers of the leaves. And we're looking for aphids, and I have not seen any of those right now. So very pleased with the garden. So I'll just continue my harvest. But as I'm harvesting, I'm looking. You know, be really observant. Okay, just finishing up the bok choy here. Man, what a harvest. Look at all this great stuff. There's probably, I bet there's 2 pounds in there. That's awesome. So part of the garden is we're eating 1/3 leafy greens, 1/3 sulfur vegetables, 1/3 color vegetables. This is a sulfur vegetable and it's a leafy green. But not everything comes on all at the same time. You notice the leafy greens come on earlier. We may have a time period in the heat of summer when we don't have as many leafy greens. So what I want you to do is to blanch these and get them in the freezer so that you have the leafy greens to eat later. And right now, out of my freezer, I can eat tomatoes, I can eat winter squash, I can eat summer squash. I have carrots in the root cellar. So I'm balancing what I'm getting every day to eat between my freezer, my root cellar, and my fresh garden. So keep that in mind. You know, you may not have this all season, but you can eat it all year. Okay, so there is our bok choy. Wow, that's awesome. I love that stuff. It's great for breakfast. And I got my mulch. I have a little bit left from what I mowed this morning, so I'm going to go ahead and start putting some of that on here. Get this on nice and thick so it can mat down. I think I found 2 weeds in this section. I think a lot of that comes from the irrigation water that we use, but it doesn't really matter because there's just not a whole lot of it going on. It's fun to have a garden that's this enjoyable and you just come out and play in it instead of having to toil. I don't know if you've noticed how many tools I've used, but I don't even bring tools out to the garden, do I? Okay, so we got the bok choy mulched. It's a good time to mulch when we harvest because then all the big leaves are off. And next we want to go into the Swiss chard. Now we didn't pick it last week, but it is definitely ready this week. Now I like my Swiss chard leaves small like this. They're very tender and juicy. A lot of people plant it too far apart and their Swiss chard leaves are like this and then they're tough and chewy. So if you want them a little bit more tender, plant them closer together like we did. You can come right on down through here and get these nice tender leaves. Okay, here's the end of our Swiss chard. We got probably 3/4 of a pound. That's really, really good. Yummy. That'll make good breakfast too. Okay, so that's our Swiss chard. I'm not going to do anything with the plants today. We pulled up 2 weeds. Everything's looking great. And then we're going to move on down. And this is our beets and our squash. I got 1 squash coming up back here. Remember we put a couple more seeds in, so I'm hoping next week to have all the squash coming up. And if you look right up here in the front, there's the biggest squash plant we got right now, and he's looking really good. As far as the beets, they're not quite, let's see, that guy's about marble size. We want to wait for them to get about golf ball size before we start to eat them. You can eat the leaves. I don't recommend it at this point because right now the plant is taking all that energy in through the leaves and making the little root balls. So we're just going to leave them alone. Everything's looking good. We'll get this mulched next week. And yeah, nothing that we need to do here. I don't even see a weed. I'm looking for one. But yeah, we'll just let her be. Okay, on down to the turnips. Okay, down here, this is our other batch of turnips. And let's see if we got any big ones that we can add to our other meal. Yep, there's one. So you want to start pulling up some of these turnips. Remember, we're going to eat the tops and the bottoms. And the turnips are in the sulfur family, so you can check that one off your list when you eat that. Okay, what do we got here? Come on, let go. Okay, I think that's all the bigger ones. Ooh, that one's really big, and I want it out of there because it's on top of my lettuce. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take off a few of these leaves that are hanging over my lettuce, so I'll add those leaves to my meal as well. Just to give the lettuce a chance, because this is mainly a lettuce bed. Okay, so there's another meal with our turnips. And we're going to come over here and harvest our lettuce, and it's looking really good. So there again, I just want to take the leaves off of the outside. And we're just going to go through and harvest this, and we can harvest group number 2, or second planting. And we'll have 2 of them going, which is about right. There'll be 2 going most of the season for us. Okay, here's our lettuce harvest for the week. There's probably about 3/4 of a pound here, so that's really good. I'm just going to set that back here where it's hopefully a little more shady. And this is our 3rd section of lettuce, and it's now big enough to transplant, and I can tell the difference between the weeds and the lettuce. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest a few of these weeds. Now, I have a couple of spots that I need to transplant into. There's a plant missing there, one here, one here. Now, just like before, We want to come up and lift these from underneath, grab them by the top, and then we want to transplant them into the empty holes. And also we want to thin, like this spot is too thick, we want to get this down to one plant. So the arrowhead was very prolific this week. There's a little piece of grass. I want one plant right there. Now these, if they're too tall, we can take the leaves off the top. Put that in there. And let's put one in here. There's a weed right there. Okay, weeds out, plants in. Okay, that's it. So we got two little guys left. They could go in our salad for the week. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is to for sure water anything that we've transplanted. So I'm going to soak these guys in, and then we're going to put the shade cloth on these for how many days? 3 days, that's right. And cover them 3 days. I'm going to go ahead and water this corner as well. Okay, that's all that section needs. Now it's time for us to plant this section, but I want to give the turnips one more week. So we're going to go ahead and catch that next week. We'll pull all the turnips out, eat them, and get our last section of lettuce in. Okay, let's go take a look at our harvest and see what we got this week. Okay, we went and weighed our harvest, and here's what we had this week. For the spinach, we had 2.5 pounds at $12 a pound, so it was $30 worth of spinach. The shigaiku was 0.65 pounds at $6 a pound, so we had $3.90 for the shigaiku. Our turnips, we had 0.45 pounds at $2 a pound, so there was 90 cents for the turnips. Our turnip greens, there was 0.75 pounds at $6 a pound, so we had $4 worth of turnip greens. And our kale, there was a half a pound at $6 a pound, so there was $3 worth of kale. And our bok choy, there was 2.33 pounds at $6 a pound, so there was $14 worth of bok choy. Our Swiss chard, there was 1 pound of Swiss chard at $6 a pound, so there was $6 worth of Swiss chard. And our lettuce, we had half a pound at $12 a pound, so we had $6 worth of lettuce. So our total this week was $67.80 that we saved by not having to go to the local grocery store and buy our groceries. The garden is giving us so much more now, and we are only 7 weeks into this garden. The garden is easy, it's practically weed-free, and has been a super joy to be in. And the garden gives me so many gifts besides food and health. So the 5th gift that my garden gives me is beauty. Every single day in the garden radiates beauty. Some of my favorites are the dewdrops on the edges of the leaves, and the perfect spirals in the center of the lettuce plants, and the geometry of a spider web, and the perfection of a newly opened squash blossom with its brilliance and open invitation to the passing honeybees. So now it's time to start your garden, and the best way to get started is to find your zone, and then you can go to the What We Can Plant Today chart to see what you can grow now. You'll be surprised. You can grow things at almost any time of the year. So if you're not sure where to start, then jump into the garden course, and from there you'll have all the instructions you need, and we'll have access to me, your gardening coach, so I can answer your questions and help you get back on track if you get lost. So if you're enjoying this garden show, do us a favor and send the link to a few of your friends that you think would like to watch and learn how to grow amazing food too. The beauty of the garden system is that you don't need to be rich or have a lot of time. You just need an education and a willingness to give it a try. So who do you know who would love to garden this way? Give the gift of gardening today to your friends and share the link to this show. So one other thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to invite you to come and visit this garden. Okay, I drew you guys a picture because I would like to invite you out to the farm. We are open for tours now, and you can see the farm and the animals and this garden if you drop by. We will be open to the public from Thursday through Sundays from 1 to 6. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning we're in full production, and we don't have time for tours. But if you come Thursday through Sunday in the afternoons from 1 to 6 all summer long, you can come and see the garden and the plants and the animals. And if you want more details, you can go to the website. But here's what I want to tell you. We're really, really easy to get to. If any of you are traveling on I-70, here's my rendition of I-70 up over the mountains into Denver. So if you're coming this way, you would come from Grand Junction, you drop down south about an hour and a half, and you can find Peonia and our farm. Okay, so if you're coming from Denver, it's 5 hours from us to the farm. So you come down I-70, you're going to get off at Glenwood Springs, you're going to hit the highway down and come down to Peonia. So if you've never been off of I-70 in this region, it is some of the prettiest country you will ever see in your life. So definitely get off I-70, come down, visit Peonia. It's a great place to stay the night. We got wineries, we got farms. It's just a really fun, little quaint little town. So anyhow, you're invited to come see the farm and see this garden, and I hope that you guys, if you're traveling I-70, will just jump off the highway and come see us. Or if you're in the Denver metro area, it's a great weekend. Just come over for the weekend, stay the night, and just enjoy our lovely valley. So anyways, until next week, may your garden be easy, fun, productive, and always organic.